Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mordheim, City of the Damned tips and tricks. There will be a separate Let's Play video, there will be a separate Games Mechanics video, and there will be a separate Warband video if you so like. First, with the tips and tricks, I would advise you to look deeply into each warband before you choose them, because they're actually quite different. They have a wide variety of different weapons and skills and even characters. For example, if you want to build a casting warband, you not go for the Possessed because they have only one mage. You go for the Sisters of Sigmar because the leader can cast, the heroes can cast, some of them, and the Impressive can cast spells. If you're going for ranged, of course you might think go for the Empire, but actually the warp pistols of the Skaven are not that worse. But sure, the Empire can put more guns on the field than anyone else because their henchmen can use handguns. If you're going for bows, maybe the Cult of the Possessed is more to your liking. Close combat. While it is true that the Cult of the Possessed excels in close combat because of their special skills that only the Possessed can have, and they're quite nasty, they have some drawbacks, especially with the mutation thing. The Skaven, on the other hand, are so fast that they're able to engage in melee almost faster than anyone else, and they can gang up on enemies pretty well. So before you choose a warband, inform yourself about their strengths and weaknesses and find the warband that you like the most. I will pick the Sisters of Sigmar, and I will perhaps make a special video because why I think that they are the most powerful in the game. But more to that later. More tips and tricks in a second. And here we are. First tip: when you create a warband, go to the veteran system. When you've played the game before, you will have points there to spend, and I recommend spending the first points you get your hands on Renown, because that will lower the prices of all henchmen, heroes and leaders you will buy. Why is that important? When your leader dies, he will cost you 80 gold to replace. Minus 20% if you got the veteran skill. That brings me to another point. The hero, the leader, and the henchman cost differently. Henchmen cost 15, heroes cost 30, and the leader costs 80. So if you're going to lose troops, and you cannot avoid it, sacrifice henchmen, then heroes, then leaders, because the leaders are the most costly to replace. Furthermore, you can start a battle without a hero. You can start a battle without a henchman. You cannot start a battle without a leader. The leader is your most prized possession. Protect him at all times. And there is another tip for those of you who play Sisters of Sigmar or the Cult of the Possessed. Casting is dangerous. Casting in the Warhammer world can go horribly wrong. It can knock out your character from 100 life points to 0 in one single action. So only cast when it's absolutely necessary. As we move on, first thing you do after the veteran system, you buy one hero, and then you go to the shop. And then you immediately check how many two-handed weapons there are. It's not important if you're playing Skaven or if you're playing Cult of the Possessed, Sisters of Sigmar or humans. The first thing you look for is the shop and two-handed weapons. For example, if you're playing Sisters of Sigmar and there are not 3 flails available, you're out. Start anew. If you're playing, for example, Empire and there are no halberds, screw it, out. If you're playing Skaven, no halberds, screw it, out. Because two-handed weapons will save the day. And that brings me to weapons itself. When you look at the shop, you will notice that there is a quite variety of weapons. Two-handed weapons, one-handed weapons, armors, and so on. Very, very important fact. Weapons are more important than armor. Armor might be nice, but armor will not keep you alive. Taking the enemy out before he takes you out is keeping you alive. You say, oh, armor reduces the damage I get by 25%. Yes, but killing the enemy before he damages you reduces the damage by 100%. Besides, the armor slows you down, the armor ruins your initiative. And if your initiative is ruined, you're not the first to strike, so you're the first to die. So always look out for that. Two-handed weapons, you need a lot of them. One for each and every character. That brings us to the characters themselves. In the beginning you cannot choose a lot, because the leader is always set, the hero is only the first one available. There will be 2 other hero classes available for your warband later on, but in the beginning you will have to do with whatever the first hero class is you have available. Keep in mind though that to the henchman you can choose. There are always 2 choices with henchmen. Now you ask, Boris, what do I choose for myself? Now, that depends basically on your game style. For example, if you're playing humans, you can choose between a ranged fighter and a close combat fighter. Keep in mind that this is wartime. Keeping the enemy at distance is possible in strategy games like Total War to a certain point. It is not really possible in wartime because this is city fighting. The enemy will come around the corner and bump you in the head with a flail, with a hammer, with whatever, before you can get off a shot. And when you're pinned in close combat, your ranged weapon is not of a lot of use to you. Each and every character, or henchman, or hero, or whatever, has a certain special ability. For example, with these sisters, they have the ability to run further once they picked up Warpstone. The novice have the special ability, the special skill, that they get a dodge bonus whenever they do damage. Now, why is this better than the other? Tips and tricks, ladies and gentlemen. This character here, this henchman, needs Wordstone to make his special ability work, and it only works for 1 turn. This henchman here can apply his ability every time he does damage, or she does damage. And that's your goal. You're doing damage all the time if everything goes wrong. If you're not doing damage, you're doing it wrong. Then your skill is wasted anyway. So let's buy one of those, and I'll show you something else. When you look at the characters, or units in this case, henchmen, you will notice that their maximum attribute skills, maximum attributes are limited. For example, she can have 12 strength and 15 agility. She can only can have strength 10 and agility 12. Why is that important? Because certain skills need certain agility or certain attribute stats. For example, you can only learn the skill of Sidestep Mastery if you've got agility 15, so plan ahead. Keep in mind though that every character in this game can only have a certain number of points distributed between his attributes. The maximum number of level is 10, and so you're only getting a certain number of points to distribute. So keep that in mind. If you say, I want Sidestep, you first put all your points into agility to get 15. And then that's safe, then you can learn Sidestep Master, and then you can put the rest into strength. Because if you're only putting 14 points here and the rest of the points in strength, you will never be able to learn Sidestep. Unless you're using books, but that's a different story. That brings us to skills. When you look at the skill tree, you will notice that nearly all characters already have 1 active or passive skill slot blocked. Yes, you can only learn 5 passive skills and 5 active skills. And as one of the slots is always blocked by your class ability, you can actually only learn 4 of one and 5 of the other. Now keep in mind that you only have a certain number of skill points to spend. For example, henchmen only have 14 skill points in total. Plus 2 if you read a book of skill, but those things are hard to come by. That means a henchman as basic skill costs 2 skill points, and a mastering a skill costs 4 additional, so 6 skill points in total. A henchman can only master 2 skills and then learn another skill for basic, or he can learn 7 basic skills, but he cannot master 3 of them. So choose wisely. Furthermore, keep in mind that some of the skills can be switched out for others. For example, we have the flash parry skill. It gives you 5% dodge, 5% parry chance, and you say, hooray, that's where I spent my points because I want 5% parry. No, you don't. You go for knowledge tactics because knowledge tactics gives you 5% parry and 5% dodge. That's better, trust me. Then you say, okay, I'm wearing heavy armor. I'm slowed down by 2 meters when I wear heavy armor. I want to fight that. So I must learn armor proficiency, right? Because that will reduce the penalty by 2 meters. No, you don't. You can learn armor proficiency basic, which will reduce the penalty by 1 meter. And then you go for wartime knowledge plus 1 meter. And you're 6 meters. Okay, you're wasting 5 points of armor absorption, but you're actually only wasting 2 skill points, as 4 skill points instead of 6. Now, the other way around, you're spending 4 points to get it instead of 6, but the other way. You know what I want to say. So, always look at the skills, always keep your points together, look where you can get the points to their highest possible use. As with the active skills, passive skills will always work. If you're attacked, they work. If you're the attacker, they work. If you're standing in the open, they work. Passive skills are your friend. Active skills will cost you offensive points and strategic points. So don't take a lot of active skills that you cannot actually use because for one you don't have the points and for second they only work in special conditions. What you should always choose with hero, leader or henchman is your way of defense. You can either go for dodge or you can go for parry. Remember that for parry you will need a shield, a sword, a halberd or fighting claws, or special mutations if you're playing possessed. Dodge will always work. Furthermore, there are attacks that ignore parry, branches for example, or weapons so to say. There is no weapon that ignores dodge. And there are far more skills and weapons that decrease your parry chance than there are that decrease your dodge chance. So basically dodge is your friend. That brings us to defense. Normally you would say, okay, I need a shield, I need a helmet, I need heavy armor, I want to survive. No, you don't want that. Why? Because in the beginning your dodge skill is horrible. 25%, and your dodge skill is reduced by the enemy's, accuracy rating. So actually, she's, for example, is reducing the dodge chance of the enemy by 8%. So go figure, there is not much dodge left. Parry, and she has a really high parry skill. All the other characters, no matter the warband, will have worse parry skills. Is reduced by strength. So actually, if she would attack herself, it's not 38%, it's 28%, and that is not taking into account that the enemy might have a higher strength skill attribute, or that he's using a weapon that reduces parry any further. Parry will not save you in the beginning. Dodge will not save you in the beginning. Melee resistance will not save you in the beginning. Melee resistance is the number of points that is deducted from the enemy's chance to hit. So that's your first line of defense, melee. The second line is dodge and parry, and the third line is your armor absorption. Armor absorption will also not help you because it will reduce the damage in maximum by 30%, 25 for heavy armor, 5 for a helmet. If someone goes at you with a two-handed weapon, he will still kill you with four attacks. You must take out the enemy before he does. Later on, when your parrying skill is 150% and your dodge skill is 120%, you can start dodging and you can start parrying. But until that point, you do not parry and you do not dodge. Hell, you kill the enemy as fast as you can. If you have no other choice in the beginning, of course, you always choose dodge because there are some weapons, heavy damage-dealing weapons, that give you a bonus to dodge when you're attacked with them. For example, two-handed hammers, two-handed swords, two-handed axes. And they're not that uncommon, so if you go up against someone like that, dodge. It might save your life. Chances are not high, but at least there is a chance. That brings me to how to survive. The first and most dangerous round is the first round, because that is where you might not be able to do anything because the enemy is faster than you and he will approach you and hit you in the face before you can do anything. You say, Boris, how can I avoid that? Do you have a tip for me? Yes, keep your initiative as high as humanly possible, because the higher your initiative, the higher are your chances that you survive in more time. Because you will act before the enemy acts. You will do damage before the enemy do damage. You kill the enemy before the enemy kills you. Whereas how do I rise my initiative? Well, by alertness for one. Alertness is the first attribute you should rise like hell. It will save your life so many times you cannot count it. Then you go for weapons. Get me to the shop. For example, should I go for hammers? Hell no, hammers make you slow. Great flail. +5 initiative. That's the cute little downside pyramid here. The higher the number, the better. For example, go for swords, +10 initiative. 2 swords, +20 initiative, because they add up. The only weapon to carry 2 one-handed weapons is to get the benefits from both. That's the all role-playing problem. Why do you carry two one-handed weapons instead of two-handed weapons? Because you can get the boni from 2 weapons or 2 items better, so to say. Initiative is your friend, and that's the reason heavy armor is out. Heavy armor slows you down, not only in movement. You have 6 meters normal movement, 8 if you're a Skaven. If you reduce that movement by 2 meters, you will not be able to keep up with your warband. People will start falling behind. You will not be able to surround the enemy. You will not be able to reach your allies in time and help them out. Heavy armor is not your friend. Later on, when you have the skills, later on when you have magic heavy armor, masterful or epic heavy armor, the penalties are reduced, then heavy armor is your friend. In the beginning it sure as hell is not. By the way, there are a lot of weapons, skills and abilities that reduce your armor absorption, so don't trust in armor. Light armor has no benefit at all. It doesn't give you initiative bonus, it gives you armor absorption that is obviously laughable. This is not helping you. Stay with what nature gives you. No, I don't mean naked, but you get clothing. Clothing gives you an initiative bonus. Hooray! Clothing gives you a dodge bonus. Hooray! This is going to save your ass. For example, clothing, 10% 10 points to initiative, 75. Then you take 2 flails. Both will give you 10 points in initiative. Then you have a initiative of 77. Boy, you will act before Skaven assassins will act. Isn't that great? Initiative is saving your ass all the time. So let's say you are the first. What to do now? Damage. And that is where the two-handed weapons come into play. Let's make a quick look at damage. This lady here does 21 to 28 damage. As a normal attack will cost you 2 offensive points, she can attack 2 times. So she will do not even 60 points of damage in one turn, and that is assuming both attack hits. 60 points of damage. Now let's look at this lady here with the two-handed hammer. She will do nearly 100 damage. So she can knock out an enemy nearly. She only needs 2 hits, and then whatever attacks the enemy will kill him. And she can attack 2 times as well, because attacking with a two-handed weapon, the first attack will cost you 2 offensive points, and the next will cost you 1 more, because this weapon here is tiring. All two-handed weapons are tiring. That means they will cost 1 more offensive point after the first attack. That, by the way, means you never charge with two-handed weapons with heroes. With henchmen, yes, because henchmen will only have 1 attack nonetheless. If she attacks out of the stand with a two-handed weapon, it will cost her 2 offensive points. If he charges, it will cost her 3. So she should charge with a two-handed weapon. Heroes and leaders should not. Damage is king. Two-handed weapons will always do more damage in the initial attack than 2 one-handed weapons or a one-handed weapon will. The only reason you use a one-handed weapon is to use a shield in the other hand later on, because your parrying skill will be so high and you will have so many offensive points that in fact you will doing nearly as much damage as with a two-handed weapon, because a two-handed weapon will do less damage with every hit, while a one-handed weapon will always do the same damage. You can have up to 4 maximum attacks with a hero, and up to 3 with a one-handed weapon, and up to 3 attacks with a two-handed weapon with a hero. And in the end, it nearly cancels each other out when it comes to damage. The only difference then will be that a one-handed weapon and a shield will keep you alive longer because it will rise your parrying and it will rise your stats, and you can put more enchantments on it, and you will be able to act before the enemies does, because one-handed weapons are faster in general than two-handed weapons are. Higher initiative means life. Higher damage means life. What about two one-handed weapons? Well, two one-handed weapons do more damage than one one-handed weapon, and they do less damage than a two-handed weapon, but you can get benefits from both weapons. So, for example, fighting with two daggers, when you look at the daggers, for example, if you're carrying two daggers, you will get a bonus to initiative of 20. Hooray! You will do 30% ambush bonus damage. You will reduce the enemy's parry chance by 16% and his dodge chance by 10%. By the way, that's the reason I say dodge before parry, because there are a lot more things that reduce your dodge parry chance than your dodge chance. So damage, 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 and for that reason, go for two-handed weapons. They do the most damage. When you charge with them, you're with your henchman, you can do a lot of damage. You can take the enemy down before the enemy can do anything. Remember that some of the attacks cannot be parried. There is no way to avoid dodging, so that might give you a bonus. Keep your cloth on, not for nudity reasons, but because it rises your initiative and it rises your dodge chance. With that said, well, we have our spend our points here. Yeah, we should buy more henchmen. You see, I'm only playing 12 goals instead of 15 goals because I've got the bonus. So, when you look at the campaign map, that's another tip. Keep in mind that the main mission goal is always the same. It's take the enemy out. And that's what you should do. You do not run primarily around and collect Wordstone, because winning the mission will give you a percentage of the loot still around on the battlefield enemy. Anyway, losing the mission will mean that you will have to pay for your wounded, that you will have to replenish your dead, that you will lose equipment, and that you will not get experience, or not at least as much. So first goal is always kill the enemy. If you can do that and loot by the way, then loot by the way. But first of all, kill the enemy. Now there comes the difficulty. That's Skull. There's normal, there's hard, there's brutal, there's deadly. That only means that the enemy will have higher leveled units and better equipped than you do, generally speaking. That does not mean that there are more of them. They will always put the same number of the field than you do. If you have an impressive, they will have an impressive. If you will have 5 henchmen, they will have 5 henchmen. If you will have 2 heroes, they will have 2 heroes. They will always bring the same number. There is no outnumbering in this game. At least not when you start. So, next thing is the secondary objective. Here it's Wordstone Rush. Here it's Wordstone Rush. That's okay. Wordstone Rush basically means run around and collect a certain number of Wordstones. That is possible. That is doable, and that is important because the secondary mission, fulfilling the secondary mission, will give you a ton of bonus XP. For example, winning the mission will give you 2 points of experience. Collecting or doing the bonus goal will give you additional 3 points of experience, so you're getting more experience for doing the bonus goal than doing for the mission itself. There is another mission goal, a secondary mission goal that is marked for death. That means you have to take out a certain person or 2 certain persons of the enemy team, which is sometimes hard because that person might be a ranged fighter and be far back behind, so you will not be able to get him. Or there is the worst of all, and this is crush their wheel. That means you will have to go to their base, their wagon, all over the battlefield, grab their idol, their flag, and bring it back to your card. And only when it's back in your card, then the mission is solved, the secondary mission. That is nearly impossible to obtain. There are some Skaven players who can do it because of their speed, but trust me, it is horrible. If you get that for a secondary mission, ignore it. Basically, you ignore the secondary mission if they're threatening the lives of your people, because no wordstone is it worth that your people get knocked out of combat or even killed, because replacing skilled characters or units is far, far, far harder than collecting some stones, by the way. That brings me to the wordstone. Very poor, and the loot is average. The thing with the spikes means the concentration of wordstone on the field. The question mark green thingy means the special items on the field. It's not that important. It's nice, but it's not that important. Here it's very poor and average. Here it's very poor and poor. You can still make a buck out of it. Of course, more is better, but it is not necessary. The most important thing is what stands below that, and that is your deployment. The difficulty level is not going to kill you. The secondary mission is not going to kill you. What is going to kill you is the deployment. Avoid scattered deployment, because scattered deployment means you have no idea where your guys are going to be placed, and you have no idea where the enemy is going to be placed. And that is where you start losing, and that is where you start getting your butt handed to you. Because, for example, your leader is in the top of a building. All your other people are miles away, and the entire building is infested with enemies and 200 weapons. They will knock your leader down in the first round. Bam, 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 before you can do anything. You cannot even get out of it if your initiative is not high enough. If your initiative is high enough, take your legs and run like hell and hope they're not Skaven, because if they are, they will get you anyway. The first round is the round that kills you, especially if the deployment is bad. Avoid scattered. If it strikes teams, it's not good, but it still gives you a chance. The best thing you can have is deploys around your wagon. Oh, is that great, because that means you start your battle in your composition, at your how you like it, in the formation you like it, and you have all your people together. So let's say here is scatter deployment and this is scatter deployment. What do I do? Well, you've got two options. Actually, you have three. You can kiss your ass goodbye and do one of the missions, or you can send scouts up to 3 times and have to pay, and 5 golds is a lot of money. Just let me remind you that bringing an item from the battlefield will give you 1 gold normally if it's a normal item. So 5 gold is a lot of cash. Or you can bite your teeth together and go for next day. There is no shame in that. If the mission sucks, before you lose troops, before you lose equipment, before you lose experienced members of your team, hell, do another day. You know that Madonna lead song, Live Another Day? That's the quintessence of this. Go for that. So, we've explained the veteran system. I've explained the veteran the warband management. Just keep in mind, choose your characters wisely. When you have a greater variety of troops available, heroes for example, think which you need absolutely and which not, because their skills might be useless and you're training up a character that you will not need later on. Keep in mind, some of them can't cast spells, and try to avoid spell casting in the beginning, and generally, because it can backfire so horribly. Keep in mind that melee resistance is your first defense line, and it is increased by agility and weapon skill. That means when you rise up, the things you rise up with every character is agility, because it rises your melee resistance and it rises your dodge chance, and both are things that are not to be laughed at. They're excellent. And your weapon skill, because it allows you to hit the enemy more often, it allows you to parry, and it allows you, if you have a weapon that can parry, and it allows you to get a higher melee resistance. So when you level up, forget about ballistics, forget about accuracy, forget about toughness, forget about strength. First things you level are agility in this section, and weapon skill in this section, and alertness, of course, in the mental section, because initiative is king. When they are maxed out, you can go for the others. But before they're not maxed out, hell, don't go for anything else than weapon skill and agility, because that is going to save your life. So, and here we go back. So, time for a quick recap. Damage is king. That means two-handed weapons are king. Initiative is important. The first round is the most important round. Agility and weapon skill and alertness are the attributes to rise. Avoid scattered deployment at any cost. Any cost. Always look for two-handed weapons. They are your friends, everything else is not. And keep in mind, avoid fair fights. Watch no fair fights, but avoid fair fights. Always gang up on the enemy with two-handed weapons and smash them into a pulp before they can do anything. These are the tips and tricks for today. There will be more. If you like, just tell me. If you want to know about a special thing about the game, just ask me. I will be happy to apply and bring the video to you. I thank you for watching. I hope the video has helped you somehow, and I hope you watch more videos with Cerner. Bye!